Hi there folks, and welcome to a quick video that demonstrates how to get started with PyCharm once you have it downloaded to your computer, as well as Python downloaded to your computer, and then connects PyCharm to the ArcGIS Pro tool suite. And we'll be able to do a call that reads import ArcPy, and we'll be able to access all the tools in ArcGIS in the Python or the PyCharm interface. Now, we want to keep in mind that that's only going to work if your licenses are up to date, and we have licenses to ArcGIS Pro tools, as well as to note that Python was created a long time ago independent of ArcGIS Pro. And just keep that in mind as we go, because it'll help you sort of piece together how these different programs are using APIs and different scripting programs in different places. It wasn't until the ArcGIS users really started to script more and develop an affinity for that and a deep skill set in that Esri said, all right, we'll create a package where you can import this stuff right into Python and script away, and your processes can be iterated more easily and things like that. So I hope this is helpful for y'all. We'll get started. Once you search for PyCharm here, let's open it. And what we'll want to do is go up here to New Project. So we'll find a place to put that. I'm going to put it in this folder of ArcPy tutorials. So I click that. So then it tells me the directory, the location of where my new project is going to be saved. I want to have it set up to the virtual environment. And I will click here. Yes, I want to make sure that that's the case. I'm going to save this as buffer example. If you don't have that yet, we can just go like this, set it there, and then type in whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it buffer example, but this is how you would update it or edit that text bar. Do we want to have it connected to ArcGIS? Yes, we do. This is the one that we'll use for today. We also want to have global site packages inherited to it and make these available to all projects. So we'll go ahead and create. Then let's open it in a new window. So now that that's connected properly, let's create a new Python scripting file within the buffer example library root that we just created. So we'll do it like that, and then we type example buffer. I'll name that example buffer1. Hit enter. Now I have this new file, and we can connect Python to ArcGIS tools through this PyCharm interface by importing the ArcPy suite or package. And I just want to make sure that that imports properly. So I'm going to go to run this, and we should see an exit code 0 if it runs properly. So we'll hope for the best there. That works. So now we want to read in the data for which we want to create a buffer around, and then save it as an output and write that call to tell Python execute the tool buffer involving this data. So I have it written here already. I'll just copy and paste it in there and put it here. So this is an object I'm naming. And what am I naming it? I'm naming it the file at the end of this file path, which is the Capitol Reef boundary in UTM. So Capitol Reef, I'm doing some research with bighorn sheep, and the Capitol Reef National Park, I have the boundary here for it. Now let's just see what that looks like. It looks like this. Where are we talking? South Central Utah, Capitol Reef National Park. That's what it's called. Cool, so it looks like it read that in properly. If we look at this in the actual folder, so you can see that this folder path is the same as right here. And here it is, so we have the shape file and all the accompanying supporting files with it. So we're going to read that in, and then what do we want to do? We want to read out something called care buffer, and we're going to do 50. Let's just put that M on there for 50 meters. And where is that going to go? It's going to go here. It's going to be named this. And again, this is just the object in Python representing this. So we'll do that. And then here's the call. So it's in the ArcPy suite. We run buffer analysis. And I'll just type this out for you so you can see what that will look like. So as soon as I type something that ArcPy contains, it'll bring up a suite of things that I can use. So I'll just hit the tab button because buffer analysis is what we want. And then one of the cool things that's really helpful here is if you just let the cursor sit or hover the cursor over it, you'll be able to read the format at which this tool is supposed to be configured. So the first thing is the input features. Right now it's at input features equals none. And then, but we can save that to care boundary because that's what we're working with. And then what comes next? The output feature class. So as soon as I hit a comma, it's going to move to the next thing. There it is. So now it's saying, all right, you have to name the output feature class. Well, we already did that right here, and it's called care buffer 50 meters, and it's just reading it from right here. So we'll put that in there, and then the buffer distancer field. And this should be something like 50 meters. It needs to be in a string format. And I know that's kind of weird because it might say, you might think there might be a call that would say dist, and for distance, dist equals 50, and then unit equals meters. But in this case, we're just putting the string in that fashion. So we can delete the duplicate here. So now that we have our basic script written, there's a couple other things that might be helpful. One, if you're using PyCharm for the first time and you're connecting it to ArcPy for the first time, you might want to, or you might need to, do what's called to check out an extension. And remember, in ArcGIS Pro and ArcMap, there's tool extensions. So there's different tool packages, right? There's like data management, there's bathymetry, there's 3D analysts, there's spatial analysts, all these different things. And each one of those has a suite of tools in it. And sometimes you need to check out that extension, just like you would check out a book from the library. You would check it out to use it and then return it. And imagine if you had a really long script with a whole bunch of different tools, you wouldn't necessarily need all of them all the time. You would check it out in order to use it and return it so that someone else can use it. That's especially important if you have a limited number of licenses with your organization. So here what we'll do is we'll just say arcpy.check out extension, and the one that we want is in the spatial analyst toolbox, so we'll just say spatial. And when you're done at the end of your script, or whenever you're done with that tool, you would just type py check in extension, and we would return the same one. We're only using one here, but you all get the point. Now, another way that you can do it, especially if you have a big script, is to go and put an if-else statement in there. So in this case, we would paste this right at the beginning, and we would do something like this. So here we have our geoprocessing. Here we have our variable assignments, and here we have our licensing. So that's how that would end. So in this case, it says, if this extension spatial equals available, then do this. Otherwise, then it raises this exception. Raise license error. We can leave it like that. So now we would run this whole thing. We could run it bit by bit, right? If we just right click after selecting and say run the selection. So we'll do that, and then at the end, we'll check back in the license. And I just for fun like to, when the model runs successfully, print a fun message, because otherwise it gives you nothing back other than what you are programming it to do. But we'll just say victory tastes sweet. Yes, it does in the GIS world. So let's run this whole thing and see what we find. There it is. So it printed victory tastes sweet. That means we're in good shape, I hope. Now let's see if our 50-meter buffer did show up in Arc Pro, or in that folder that we're working with. Okay, great. And you might have to refresh this, but there it is. So it shows up. And there's a couple things. Notice that this is called care buffer 50. And in our script that we wrote, care buffer 50 was what we told the computer to actually name it. This care buffer 50 meters is the thing that Python read as an object indicating this. So let's suppose that you want to run the same script but calculate 100-meter buffer on the same shapefile. We could do something like this. And don't forget, after we run this, we do need to change that down there, and then we need to change the actual distance away from the original polygon's boundary that we're measuring the buffer within. So now we'll run these. I'll just run these individually just to double check, make sure there's no individual errors. Looks good there. Then we can run this. We get the output. What is the output? It is that. That's the result. Again, if you want to run the whole thing, you can, but Now let's go into Arc Pro and double check, see what we got. We'll refresh this. Looks like a 100-meter shapefile showed up. So now let's zoom in and see what happened. This is a little bit slower to render simply because I'm in a scene, so it's designed to handle 3D. So let's go put this on the bottom since it's the biggest and see what we get. Okay, those look good. We'll measure just to be sure. Got the distance tool, got the metric. Is this about 100 meters? Yes, it is. So our result was successful there. So I hope that's helpful for y'all. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer them as soon as possible. And otherwise, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.